Electrocast.
Hold on to your butts.
We are changing the course of history as we see it. That is what Wesley demands.
Now, this affects Iris. Iris, where are you?
What you feel only matters to you.
I do not entertain hypotheticals. The world as it is vexing enough.
Iris, I have a tip for you.
Don't take drugs!
Or Whatever Movies with Wesley and Iris.
What up, and welcome to Or Whatever Movies. I'm your co-host, Iris, and I'm here with my older brother.
Old Wesley.
Yeah, he is, and today we're talking a movie from 2024 available in theaters. Not one, but two, Twisters.
I think it's more than two, although all I can hear in my head is the trailer. We've got twins! Twins! Oh, it's burned in my brain. But it's not about two twisters. It's about several twisters, like Aliens is about multiple alien.
That trailer moment did remind me of Evan Almighty. Do you remember the follow-up to Bruce Almighty with Steve Carell?
Mm-hmm.
And he's in the car and he slams on the brakes and he's like, sheep, for no reason. I mean, there's sheep and stuff, but why just say sheep? And it's supposed to be funny, and that movie bombed. That did not bode well. I was like, this is like a Glen Almighty. And I did not have high expectations for Twisters. Plus, having rewatched Twister, the original, I was like, it's not flawless by any stretch.
Not any stretch.
But it's a pretty solid, it's an entertaining movie. I mean, come on.
For sure. It was probably, arguably, maybe the best of the natural earthbound disaster movies.
And that was a thing in the 90s.
100%. But you remember a couple of months ago when we bemoaned the failure of The Fall Guy, and there was something else that bombed, and I was like, what is happening? This is going to be the worst summer on record. What do we got? Like, what good is coming up? Twister wasn't even on my summer radar. Twisters. That's how low my expectations were.
Everyone's seeing Twisters.
Everyone is seeing Twisters. We also talked about the savior of the summer. Reigniting the summer box office was the kingdom of the planet of the apes. And what a miserable experience I had watching that movie in 4DX, which is hugely boosting ticket sales for Twisters.
So Amy and I saw an afternoon screening in IMAX of Twisters, and my seat was shaken. I imagine it's what 4DX feels like. I mean, the rumbles. Could it have just been the speakers in the sound system that was rumbling my chair?
No, you would know it, because one of the hallmarks of seeing Twisters in 4DX is people are coming out of the theater soaking wet, which we talked about. Which actually, I mean, probably, if any, I'm not going to fall for it again, but if any movie was going to work in 4DX, it would be Twisters, because like you get the smell of the funky water, and it probably smells like an Oklahoma rodeo or the bottom of an Oklahoma swimming pool.
Or an underpass, or whatever other dank place that they went to, a movie theater. Yeah, the sound, the rain.
They have the fog effects. The seats don't rumble. They rock you back and forth like a roller coaster.
I was pretty pleased to just see it in IMAX. I don't think I needed much more. It was already a little distracting. I also noted the irony of watching Twisters in the movie theater and how it took a tornado to get people to actually go to a movie within the Twisters universe.
Right, where they then tore apart that movie theater. Now, those seats were rumbling.
And I half expected our screen to blow out, just given the perspective of the film. There was one point where the movie theater screen in the movie took up the entire screen of my movie theater, and I was like, whoa, meta.
Yeah, the craziest meta movie theater experience since, spoiler, Inglourious Bastards.
Oh, and the giant face.
You don't want that one. Oh, man.
You do not want that in theater experience, no.
But we saw Twisters. I mean, we saw it coming. This is ushering Glen Powell into the captain's chair. It's kind of his starring role, even if he plays it behind Daisy Edgar Jones. I came in loaded for this movie. I was like, I'm going to tear this movie apart based on the physics. And there were still, like the original Twister, which is my guess for most of the problem of that movie, the physics is super wonky and sketch, and I was prepared for that throughout. I think they did tone it down a bit, but I was super worried starting out in this movie. I called it Tweensters because They were all babies. And I was like, please don't make this be a kid's movie.
Well, there were a combination of signals, one being that they were all tweensters and annoying, but also when they took the group photo all smiley and happy-go-lucky, I immediately turned to Amy and was like, they're all going to die.
Right.
And then they all died.
Well, almost all of them died, but that was my first sign of relief when she was like, hey guys, we have barbecue at the house when we're done. I was like, oh, thank goodness, because that definitely means they're going to die.
Yeah, so they didn't all die. We get Javi, played by Anthony Ramos, to live so that we can have the love triangle between Kate, Tyler, and Javi. But I don't think Javi ever had a chance. And once you saw Tyler connecting with Kathy, you knew it was all over for Javi, right?
Yeah. Javi ran so those other kids could fly.
Is that some kind of morality tale?
Come on, that's awesome. That's a poster quote, maybe. But man, so that opening, the whole opening scene was exactly what I worried that Twisters was going to be. I was like, this is a kid's movie. It's so dumb. And I called the physics into question. Once they exit the truck, the 2.5-ton truck gets whipped away into the sky and they're still running. They get picked off one by one. And then the boyfriend kid is raked away from her. He's right on top of her. It doesn't make sense that she could be scrambling up under the underpass and what's-her-nuts from Mad Men gets like torn off into the sky. There's a suck zone, people, and you guys are defying physics.
Is this because you're the son of an aerospace engineer that you get hung up on this physics thing?
No, I don't think so, because I actually never took a physics class in my life. It feels like common sense to me, and it felt wonky to me in 96 when they were driving all 4 tires on the road, plenty of traction, and a giant cow goes soaring through the air above the hood. But Twister I saw a lot, maybe 3 times in the theater. Didn't buy it because I felt like I knew it well enough, but I was there, man. I was there for Twister, and I was there for 9/11 when it happened, and I was there for the Northridge earthquake, and so I know what feels real, man. And that's why I called myself Old Wesley, because I knew it was going to be hard to pull anything over on me for Twisters 2024. 27 years later, 28 years later. And I'm sure it was scripted. I'm positive that it was pre-discussed beforehand as a joke. But Late Night with Seth Meyer, Daisy Edgar Jones was on there. And he said, do you remember seeing the original Twister? And she said, this woman said, and I quote, it came out before I was born. That does not feel... Twister was not a childhood movie for me. I was a full-blown adult by that point. And I was like, oh my God, they have like jean shorts and pigtails and stuff, man. I was like, this is gonna suck.
And then
it got better. It got better because she got a more grown-up hairstyle and more grown-up clothes, I guess. And she was all traumatized. And that's what being an adult is just, manifesting your trauma and stuff.
Yeah, to quote normal people, she got pretty. So basically, this is the natural disaster version of the super sexy and erotic series that is Normal People. Maybe,
but she was also wearing at one point, I think it was during the rodeo, the same outfit as Helen Hunt in the original Twister. Not what I would call a sexy outfit per se. She was definitely dressed to be older, a la Matchstick Men, your girl Allison Lohman.
Oh, right, when she shows up at the furniture store all goth.
Right, she's supposed to be older at that point. But 5 years says a lot.
So yes, Daisy Edgar Jones' character grows up and goes all corporate or whatever, which I guess is supposed to parallel Bill Paxton's trajectory, going from adrenaline junkie tornado chaser to weatherman. Does this exist in the same world as Twister? Is this a sequel to Twister?
They called it a soft sequel or something like that. In my mind, this is 100% a sequel, down to the font. It's the exact same font with an S added in the background. There are so many nods, even though we lost Bill Paxton, R.I.P. Bill Paxton. Helen Hunt, they talked about her being in the movie, so much so that Lee Isaac Chung, our director, said that this is probably spin. He's probably justifying it after the fact. But he said that Joe, the Helen Hunt character, is not the concerned mom hanging out on the farm by herself. She's out there chasing still. So he didn't want to relegate her character to like a farm cameo. I mean, there's so many homages, so many things that they ramped up in true sequel style. It was just bigger and scarier and doubled down, like Top Gun Maverick and Glen Powell's kind of breakthrough role. It just was Twister on steroids.
So we, the audience, are like talking to the movie Twisters, and we're like, "Good to have you back." And Twisters is like, "I'm not back." Kinda. I'm kinda back. I'm soft back. And we're like, okay, well, at least you're fun. This is a big movie for Daisy Edgar Jones to, I guess, headline, but not so big a movie for Glen Powell, who already cut his teeth on Maverick. I mean, isn't Glen Powell's Tyler character, isn't he basically just Hangman, but with tornadoes?
Yes. It was very close, just with a belt buckle and a truck rather than, I mean.
Right.
But just, I think it's because that smarm was so clearly in place for both movies for basically the same role, where he plays the strong supporting character.
So Glen Powell's Tyler starts off as very obnoxious. And then I felt like he had this really sudden, kind of unmotivated turn to being Daisy Edgar Jones' straight man. And I kind of complained about it to Amy, who I thought made a great point. She said, for the first, half hour or so of his performance, he's on camera. He's the tornado wrangler. Right. And he's putting on a persona, right? And so I think he's just extra obnoxious. But it's true that when the cameras are off, he's not that weird. He's like fixing the car, and he talks like a normal human being when Kate joins the tornado wrangler's team. But at first I felt like the turn was really abrupt.
But also, we were forced into that turn where he's like, how dare you suggest that we're doing this, just to get my face on a t-shirt or whatever, when they take all their proceeds from the YouTube channel and feed those stricken by tornadoes and displaced.
That was the moment where I turned to Amy and rubbed my chin. Things are not as they seem in Tornado Land.
Right? Definitely not in Kansas anymore. We're in Oklahoma.
The obnoxious adrenaline junkie YouTubers are the good guys. And once again, the corporate storm par or whatever that was headed by Carrie Elways in the original is still bad.
He's bad because he's wearing a polo shirt.
So the technology hasn't advanced too terribly much since Twisters 1990. What is it?
96.
But we kind of get some of the science and stuff out of the way. And thank goodness, because I felt like the first hour and a half of this movie is a little bit laden with the setup and with the homages and stuff. But then the last half hour, when Tyler and Kate sync up to go chase the last tornado, and I forget what the impetus was for the last set piece.
It was realizing that they could use the iodide to turn the water content in the tornado to precipitation, and further enabling their super absorbent polymers to grab the rest of the moisture and sap the fuel from the tornado. Boom!
What he said. So they get all excited about that, and she gets her little camera out, which signals to us that Kate is back, and she's got her little harness on, her little holster on, and looks all badass and is posing for the journalist. And that's when the movie really picked up. And then, surprise, they get a chance to not only test their theory, but to use it to save the town. And then we slide into finish.
Yeah, I turned to Kelly and I was like, what is that harness thing for? She had to look Tomb Raider-y, Lara Crofty for the purposes. She was wearing her storm chasing outfit.
It would be one thing if she had a telescopic lens that weighs 15 pounds, but it was like a dinky vintage Nikon on a leash.
Wait, was the over the shoulder, under the armpit harness to hold the camera?
Yes, I think it was a camera holster.
Oh man. So she requested that camera, and she wanted her character to be a photographer after Lee Isaac Chung made the cast watch Fire of Love. A review available now at orwhatevermovies or wherever you get podcasts.
.com.
He wanted the two of them to have this human relationship, in the face of the natural disaster. And she wanted that too, because she was taken with that movie. As you recall, that was one of our series of movies in which people run headlong into stuff and put themselves in harm's way. Things don't go terribly well. I was pretty sure they were going to be okay by the end of this, but people got sucked up. Even in the big EF5 that she kind of stopped, I guess she sapped it enough so that it didn't quite overtake the theater. A couple of theater goers still got sucked out through the screen hole.
Yeah, the drone dread girl almost got sucked up, but you had to give Glen Powell his hero moment. He can't just be Daisy Edgar Jones' sidekick.
And maybe it was because I was so young.
Life is hard, but finding a really great podcast makes the days go by so much easier. Hi, my name is Blue Telusma. I'm a writer, an emotional intelligence coach, and the host of Humanize with Blue Telusma, a podcast where we believe that when you humanize everyone in the room, a great conversation is almost guaranteed. Join us every week here on Electricast as me and my guest co-hosts unpack big topics and interview even bigger personalities with a sense of humor and a dash of mischief. If you're looking for a new best friend in your head, we've got you covered. Electricast.
That everyone in Twister 1996 looked so old. I guarantee that Bill Paxton was younger than I am now in that movie, but everybody felt so young, man.
You know, I know we're not talking about Twister, the original, but Bill Paxton is just the perfect choice for that movie.
He's a Texas dude. He's kind of a country, normally wears stiff jeans and a belt buckle. You know, like, we just got our asses kicked, pal. And likewise, Glen Powell, I saw him and I was like, that is almost too perfect. That dude is from Austin, Texas, which he claims is part of the tornado belt. He said he was raised in the tornado belt.
But Bill Paxton is perfect for Twister because he is perfect tonally, because it's kind of a goofy movie based on unprecedented once-in-a-generation storms.
Yeah, the 50-year storm.
But so it's goofy, and Bill Paxton is kind of goofy, but he's also badass. And whether you're talking about Twister from 96 or Twisters from 2024, the tornado's the star. And you can't have an ego about that, and you can't compete, and blah, 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 human relations or whatever. But if the Twisters don't look cool and the set pieces don't play out, then what really are we talking about here?
I mean, the special effects, I think, were really good. I think it wasn't a clearly defined funnel or a cone at all times, you know what I mean? Especially the fire tornado, I think they handled that particularly well. At some points, it was just the wind and you could see the muted explosions from within the dust and debris cloud. It wasn't always so clean a tornado proper for the poster image, you know what I mean? Which I think is a little bit more realistic. At first, I thought, well, at least the Twister is not as animalistic and growly as it was in Twister, but indeed it was. It got very growly.
It did?
Yeah, Lee Isaac Chung, he admitted that it was wolves and seals and horse noises to make this Twister, to bring it to life. He said this is a monster movie, and clearly admitted that the Twisters are the star and they are the monster in this particular monster movie.
That's interesting. What were the animals for the sound effects used for the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park?
So there were dolphin squeals. The raptor squeals were dolphins. There are definitely lion roars and tiger roars, big cat roars for some of them, and some of the bleating and the the trumpeting noises were elephants.
Okay. Well, I thought maybe the T-Rex was like a city bus or something.
There was definitely some low-end rumbling in there that could have been that.
So what were they trying to communicate? Were the Twisters just grumpy?
It felt to me like when it chooses to take you away, it's almost like the Twister extends a hand and plucks you away from your friend who's right next to you and doesn't get, carried away. When her boyfriend got pulled literally off her back and sucked away at a high rate of speed, she was like holding on and her hair was blowing a little bit, but that was kind of it. At least in the original Twister, both of them were like legs dangling, inverted in the air as they were holding onto the pipe and stuff.
Oh, right. And well, they were also strapped into those leather harnesses or whatever.
Right? I mean, I think an E5 tornado would have taken that whole overpass. Sorry, we're now calling them EF5, not F5, EF5.
Which stands for what?
So we laid out that it was the Fujita scale, not by the size of the funnel, but rather by how much, as the original movie said, how much it eats. But this is now the enhanced Fujita scale. So consistently, rather than F5, they say EF5.
All right. It's like UAP.
What is that? Oh, wait, the unidentified aerial phenomenon?
I was just going to let it hang there, but yeah.
Boom.
The new UFO. You don't want to leave our listeners hanging. You're better than Jordan Peele.
I think that Twister inspired, at least to some degree, being also a Steven Spielberg movie, people to want to be storm chasers. I don't think that was a thing, in the same way that Indiana Jones inspired a whole generation to be, and beyond, multiple generations, to be archaeologists.
Karate Kid spawned a whole new industry of martial arts.
Yeah, our review now, or whatevermovies.com, or wherever you get podcasts. But this one is, I was paying attention to the science. I needed the science to be rock solid because I needed them to explain any level of wonkiness that came along.
Rock
it was fun.
solid science in Twisters.
For a while, I didn't laugh. There wasn't a hair-raising moment. No flying cows. It didn't blow my hair back. Kind of until we got to the Fire-nado.
And swept away?
But then I was like, oh, that was kind of cool when the Fire-nado happened. And then I let go. You're always talking about just like roll with it or whatever, or just like let it take you away, no pun intended. And finally, this movie won me over.
That's what I'm saying. The last half hour, the momentum really picks up. We got all the science and the dueling groups and all that mumbo jumbo out of the way. And when you let Kate and Tyler just do their thing, it's kind of fun.
Yep, it's kind
of fun.
And whenever you get caught up in a Spielberg movie, he brings it back around and you're like, oh, I can't believe I fell for that. You know, it's not when you're out in the lobby or walking to your car. It's always at the end. You're like, oh, I fell for it, because he reminds you of some of the dumb choices that he or the other filmmakers under his umbrella kind of make. Kelly Ray was, I think, a little bit skeptical, and she, like, I turned to her and smirked when what's-her-name started singing about you can't take the ho-wo-wo out of Oklahoma and stuff, and we were like, oh my God, what is this? But she was on board until he takes those janky Home Depot rototillers and drives them into solid concrete on the at the curb in the airport. And she started smacking her forehead with how ridiculous that was. You get caught up and then you get ripped out of it, and you can no longer suspend disbelief.
How interesting that that's what she took umbrage with, when what Amy and I were rolling our eyes at was the moment before, where she's like, if you love it, you got to chase it. We're like,
if you feel it. Yeah, that was pretty bad.
Oh, it was so bad. But at least it wasn't like a melodramatic kiss at the end. Instead, they have a tornado warning, and the dynamic duo is back in business.
So you would have preferred for them not to smooch?
Yes, because basically what I'm saying is I was not feeling the chemistry.
They were flat because they weren't adversaries necessarily. She disdained of his kind of freewheeling approach to storm chasing after she had suffered such trauma, and he's a whooping and a hollering as he drives directly into the path of the storm. But I agree, not a lot. They had an actual chemistry read, and no red flags were raised. How is that possible?
There was a People magazine clickbait article that had like some suggestive headline about how Glen Powell and Daisy Edgar Jones dressed up for their first date, but then for the rest of the shoot was in sweats. And I was like, first date? There's no way that these two people in real life are actually dating. And that they were just referring to the first date of principal photography. So it was a little misleading. But even just at the outset, without having seen the movie, I was like, these two really? I mean, put Paul Mescal there and it's a different movie.
I don't know who this
talk
person
about chemistry.
is. This is like Jeremy Strong. You keep talking about Paul Mescal, and I was like, wait, I have to remind myself that's not Pedro Pascal. I don't know who you're talking about. We're going to find out one day, like the world is finding out about Glen Powell or whatever, who, to be perfectly fair, is 10 years Daisy Edgar Jones' senior. I think he looks it. He's got a rugged Texas thing going on, even if he's a little bit slight and swiper no swiping, but he's But she looks so, I couldn't get past the opening scene, and I'm like, oh, they just gussied her up to make her look more adult, but she never read as fully cooked to me. She's still kind of a baby. But are you aware that Steven Spielberg's most famous note, it was in all the stuff because he's executive producer for this as he was for the original 1996 Twister, his one biggest note that's been widely reported is they filmed the kiss and he was like, nah, no kiss.
He was like, no kiss, and also my War of the Worlds set is available in case you want to use that for Tornado City. He nixed the kiss?
They filmed, I don't think they had to go back or if that was the whole plan. Undoubtedly, in the script, there was a kiss. For safety, Lee Isaac Chung got a no-kiss version, which he says he liked better and agrees with Spielberg's note because they originally had the kiss in there, at least in a cut that they showed to Spielberg. And I don't know, like, it didn't have to be about that, although obviously we were moving towards them teaming up and completely sidelining poor Javi, but they were kind of working together at the end. Javi saved the new love interest by prying the streetcar off his leg before the water tower came down and stuff. But it was a little bit weird that he would destroy public property and run into the airport just to look at it, have them look at each other and then walk away as the storm front's developing and delaying the flights, right? A little bit weird, but fine. There's plenty of room and opportunity for them to have a full-scale Twister 1996 style romance in the inevitable sequel to this movie.
Oh, really? Is that already in the works?
Undoubtedly. It'll be 28 years between Twister and Twisters, and maybe 3 before Twisters with a Z.
What was the third installment of Alien?
Alien 3, Alien Cubed, technically.
Oh, so Twisters Cubed? Well, I wouldn't put it past Universal and Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers could certainly use it. Would you say that this, Wes, is an 8-star definition of a summer blockbuster?
Sure. I saw it twice actually, and I was grateful for the second time because all the Mr. Riggs stuff and the guy sucking up land from tornado devastated people and stuff, I missed that the first time around. I was paying close attention to an 8-year-old who was a little bit scared of this movie and was convinced his seats were rattling because he wasn't a fan of those motion-y seats. So I was paying close attention to my buddy the Woo and less attention to the movie than maybe I should have. But it was aimed for people. He was all about the tornadoes, having just seen the original Twister. I think it was geared for him, and the fear was real. Like, it was palpable. This is the audience, maybe a little bit older, given that this is PG-13, but I'm sure this made a lot of kids in the Midwest elated to have their lifestyle and frickin' heroes represented as storm chasers in flannel and jeans and stuff.
And trucks.
Yeah, and trucks, man. And that truck, again, just Twister on steroids, where they had the big red truck, and this one, the big red truck was growling and leaping and reinforced throughout.
And drilling into concrete.
I'm sure that truck exists on the shelves of Toys R Us or wherever Amazon, wherever the kids are buying toys. There's definitely a Twister's truck.
Oh, yeah. I mean, rescue vehicles, those work hard in the overall toy portfolio. I think it's interesting that you talk about how Oklahomans would be elated to be represented. What one IMDb user, 8 stars, asks is, how does Oklahoma have the infrastructure when this keeps happening every other day?
Right. I don't understand. Why would you there's a couple movies now where those windmills are solid steel. Presumably those blades are sharpened and they're very dangerous when they go flying through the air and impale themselves in the ground right next to the trucks. Why would they do that? Why would they put those windmills in Tornado Alley?
Just so that they could go careening off and slicing people up.
Why wouldn't you reinforce the storm sirens so that when the Twister sucks it up, people don't think, oh, well, the danger is past as the tornado sirens have stopped?
But we can't get caught up in this Because this movie is 9 stars, truckloads of fun.
Truckloads of fun. Eventually it came around, so I was able to enjoy it for what it was, and I think exactly the way they were hoping would affect most people. Twister, for the YouTube generation or beyond, or whatever the kids are on these days, had its problems, but not enough for me to be like, no, this movie failed to be enjoyable because of those problems, unlike some other summer blockbusters that we've seen this year. This is The Force Awakens. This is Cobra Kai with tornadoes. It's a younger generation. It's supposed to look and feel the same. It doesn't quite, but I had fun. I enjoyed it because tornadoes are cool. It's so weird to say that natural disasters are cool, but that is the power and strength of these summer blockbuster movies. I give it an all right. But I wasn't always there. Lee Isaac Chung, the director of Minari. That's weird, but it was like Ang Lee's The Hulk. It's just like an unlikely choice. That is not at all an Asian correlation, but simply to say that this is an unexpected person, I think, to helm Twisters.
That's the poster quote. Asian correlation.
No.
The tornado is the star, even if Daisy Edgar Jones gets top billing in this summer blockbuster, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And likewise, I'll give it a good. And that's our discussion on Twisters from 2024. 818-835-0473 or whatevermovies@gmail.com or whatevermovies.com. Check out 300 plus reviews available there. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed this discussion on Twisters, and we'll see you next time.
For those of you who dream of a world where music and podcasts live together in perfect harmony, now, for the first time, Electricast gives you a magical compilation, Pod Till You Drop, Volume 1, where we give you the best in tunes and the best in podcasts. Feast your ears and hear the culture. Available now wherever you listen to music.
Welcome to the Candle Power Hour. Come with us backstage behind the scenes of show business spanning over 4 decades and bringing you the experiences that can only be told by the people who were there.
Our guests are from the A-list, the F-list, and everyone in between. Get set for some of the most insane, hilarious, and inspiring stories you will ever hear.
I'm Mercury.
And I'm Diego.
Your host for the Candle Power Hour.
Electricast.